Well, good afternoon, everybody. Round 4, race 8 of the 2024 championship season for the Ferrari Challenge UK is about to get underway here at Donington Park. The twists, the turns, the undulations of the Donington Park National Circuit lie ahead for our competitors, whether they be either in Trofeo Pirelli or in Copa Shell. And mathematically, we could potentially be crowning a champion at the end of the next 30 minutes plus one lap. But we'll keep you abreast of all of that and the maths as we work our way around the next 30 minutes plus the extra lap thereafter. The weather has been pretty good, hasn't it? It does feel as though summer has finally arrived after all of the rain that we've had in the UK. There were a few little spits of rain after racing activity yesterday, but the temperatures have remained good today. 30 degrees is the track temperature, 18 degrees is the air temperature, and there is a very, very light wind. So the cars are making their way out onto circuit and the grid. We'll guide you through that lately and shortly into our grid walk. But let's also catch up with one of the drivers that's down there on the grid, Mike Dewhirst, just to try and understand what his background is and how he's found his way into Ferrari Challenge.
In terms of my racing background, when I was in my late teens, early 20s, I raced Formula TKM, mostly around Yorkshire in the Woolwell Club Championship and the Fullbeck Club Championships. Then did that until probably about 1994, racing the British Grand Prix, the British Super Prix a couple of times, and then pretty much retired, then focused on the career and working life. Had a little go at karting again in sort of 2010. And again in TKM, but TKM Clubman, they gave us the opportunity to take all the classic stuff out of the shed and run it again, so I did that for a season. I've had the good fortune to drive a Dallara Ferrari Formula 1 car in at the deep end, so first time I drove that was at the Goodwood Festival of Speed up the hill, so no pressure there to not make any mistakes. So yeah, ran that for one weekend there, and then did a few European demos at a couple of Grand Prix and drove that. So again, nice experience driving a fantastic car, V12 3.5 litre Ferrari engine, so really quick, really lightweight car, really good downforce, so a great experience. Other than that, a few demos, a couple of Group B rally cars that I've been out in, an RS200 and a Metro 6R4. So again, different, all challenging, interesting things to drive, and then and straight into the Ferrari Challenge. Well, I think I wanted something where it was the full package. So again, nice cars, prestigious cars, great events, great atmosphere, fantastic hospitality, a good family, good community feel around it. So again, it's extremely competitive. There's some really good drivers. It's competitive, but it still retains some element of being gentlemanly.
So good to catch up with Mike Dewhirst and understand how he found his way into the Ferrari Challenge UK. Well, the grid is beginning to form now, and that grid is based on the qualifying session that took place earlier on this morning. So let's look back at some of our highlights from qualifying this morning. Well, as the cars made their way out onto circuit, for some of the drivers, they were trying to make sure that their cars were repaired after issues yesterday when we had an early red flag in one of the incidents. The car of Gilbert Yates was always going to be the one to watch in qualifying. He set the early pace, but Pranav Vangala was not that far away. Briefly up onto the front row of the grid. The best of the battles, though, were who was going to line up on pole in Copa Shell. And for the first time in Copa Shell, that went the way of Steve Dobson. So he will pick up the extra championship points for pole position in Copa Shell. Gilbert Yates will add to the championship tally in Trofeo Pirelli. So the cars are there on the grid. Joining me up in the commentary box is Adam Weller. Adam, looking forward to this one. We had that interruption of the red flag yesterday. All of the cars thankfully repaired. Darren Howell dropping into a spare car, so he picks up some grid position drops, and we'll see how he gets on.
Yeah, there are some scintillating potential scenarios for today's race. Lucky Kira being there on the front row of the grid alongside Gilbert Yates on his return to the series. Lucky Kira, the driver that has taken more victories than anybody else in the history of Ferrari Challenge UK. Of course, the defending reigning champion Andrew Morrow on the second row of the grid. That's going to be really interesting, and we've got a very compelling battle in Copa Shell as well. Not just in the title battle between Rees and Dewhirst, but with Stephen Dobson on pole position as well. That makes it very interesting.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see as to how all of that pans out. So the grid is pretty much fully formed now. The pit lane opened at 10 past, and it gave a few of the drivers the opportunity to do some installation laps. So literally they go out of pit lane, do a lap, and then come back down the pit lane to go back out and do another lap. And once you have continued round and not come into pit lane exits, then you line up on the grid. And Gary Redman, I think, is one of the last to do that. So it looks as though our grid is now pretty much fully formed. I could see already that a few of the drivers are out of their cars and just trying to cool off a little bit, because we heard from a lot of the drivers yesterday, understandably, warm day, warm car, all of that heat soak coming through, the crash helmet, the fireproof overalls. It's a fairly warm environment to be in when you're pushing hard and are working to try and get the very best out of your 488 Evo Challenge cars. So with all of the cars and all of the drivers on the grid, it's time to hand you down to our presenters. Amanda Stretton is down there on the grid with Dave Richardson.
Indeed, yes, I was jumping in there ahead of you.
You were.
He said my name first, so I just thought I would say hello. All right, whatever. So hello, welcome to the grid here at Donington for the second race this weekend of the Ferrari Challenge UK. Dave, it doesn't matter, you don't have to speak. You have got to do something. Well, anyway, whilst Dave finds his tongue, a man never knowingly lost for words, I'll make a start anyway. So here we are at the back of the grid. We're going to make our way forwards, but just a few people to mention. First of all, this car, Darren Howell. He's had a really troublesome weekend, and therefore not in the familiar car that we're used to seeing him in. He is in a rented car this weekend, but it's great to see him back out. Of course, a legacy of the first lap incident that happened yesterday.
You're absolutely right. But didn't he go well in qualifying, given that he was in a car that he's not used to, Amanda? I was really impressed. Well done, Darren, and good luck for the race, friend.
Exactly. Yes, very much good luck. And here we have alongside him the car of Pete Hunter. You can still see the scars. I'm just going to close the door so you can see all the war wounds of what happened yesterday, where unfortunately it was another retirement as well. I'm not even coming anywhere close. He's screaming, save me a seat, thanks. Doesn't look very comfy. Very sweet, yeah. Would you ever go in a passenger during a race?
No, the answer is no. I would not. Actually, yes, I would, because Peter's experience, as we've seen in the Ferrari Challenge, is awesome. But also, of course, he's got a heritage of being able to drive sideways on the loose stuff as well. So you've got to have car control plenty, Amanda.
You certainly do, yes. Here we have Robert Rees. Mathematically going into today, there was a chance that he could have wrapped up the Copa Shell Championship, but that hasn't happened because he didn't get the point for pole position.
Yeah, but apparently it's still, and Adam and Mark will confirm this when we go back to them.
They're so much cleverer than we
They
are.
are, and also they've got a calculator there. That
true.
helps, doesn't it? There is still a chance that Robert could do that, but of course it all depends on where Mike Dewhirst finishes as well. I was looking around because Federico Pastorelli is here as well, who is the regional manager for Ferrari North Europe. I'm going to try and grab a word with him. I can actually see him over here, so forgive me going in front of you, Amanda. But Federico, absolutely wonderful. Great atmosphere, great weather, great cars on the grid. It's all getting to the sharp end of the championship now. After this, of course, we go off to Silverstone, and that will be it.
Yes, after this one, first of all, here at Donington, we are very happy to have these drivers with us, 11, but we will have also more in Silverstone, so that mid-September we will be all there. Another great event, and that's it, Silverstone. We are really eager to go to Silverstone.
And of course, next year, a huge year for the Ferrari Challenge here in the UK. We're hoping to see the 296 on the grid and uplift in numbers and a brilliant calendar. Are you going to tell me any more, or are you still going to keep it a secret?
I don't know nothing.
Ah.
I don't know nothing, as usual. And no, yes, we are working on the calendar of the next year. That will be also more charming. And I suppose there will be many news for our drivers. And then there will be the 296. That is an amazing car. We are organizing test drive for all drivers and also potential new drivers for next year. All of them are really happy and impressed by the car, so that next year we will have on the grid the 296.
As always, great to talk to you. Thank you.
Talks to you is great.
Ah, brilliant. I tried very hard to get some
You did.
information
He
and
was
I
very
failed
tight-lipped.
miserably, Amanda. It should have been you.
You're obviously good at keeping secrets.
Obvious. But no, the problem is that I don't know nothing.
Oh, okay. Well, that's it. I don't know nothing.
I don't believe
That's the
I don't
easiest
believe
thing
it.
to say.
I really don't. But there we are. Great to talk.
You tried hard, though. Well
I
done.
did try hard.
Yeah.
Regional manager then of Ferrari North Europe, spending time to talk to us on the air, which is always brilliant. Right, we continue our quest through the grid. Now, I've been speaking to a lot of drivers over the course of the weekend, Amanda, and the drivers have always been very kind in terms of saying who they've been most impressed with by way of competition this year. And one man stands out probably among them, and that is Pranav Vangala, who, of course, has done a fantastic job this season.
I know. Hasn't he done brilliantly? I wonder if I can just stick my head in and have a little word with him, because he has been doing incredible things. Pranav, do you feel like having a quick chat?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. Brilliant. We were just saying how impressed we were, and a lot of the other drivers are, with your performance so far this season, because, of course, this is your first.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's very kind of you guys to say, and I think it's been such a privilege to get to compete this year, and you know, it's hopefully something I can repeat going forward. But it's just been so much fun. I can't really say enough about that.
Oh, well, that's brilliant. And tell me, what do you think of this circuit?
You know, it's honestly, it's shaping up to be one of my favorites. I think it's got a lot of undulation. The camber changes and the elevation changes just add a level of excitement. You need to really be thinking ahead when it comes to overtaking and kind of defending on the insides of corners. So it's definitely one that keeps you on your toes.
Well, listen, go well.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Very exciting stuff there. And I think, well, I hope very much he's a driver we're going to see much more of. I don't know where Dave's gone. I've lost him.
Where are you going, Amanda? For goodness sake, look behind you.
There, what are you doing back there?
You've gone wandering off. I was just going to say some nice things about Hemandrai Pillai, and you've cleared off into the distance as usual. You're such a fast woman, you know.
Oh, I'm back with you. I'm back with you.
I was just going to say, Hemandrai Pillai, who's down there, I'm not going to disturb him. Because, as you can see, he's in conversation with his driver coach, and hoping for good things from Hemandra in this race 2 of the weekend here at Donington. Right up until the drivers leave the grid, they're still being fed information and ideas with regards to strategy and how to get into turn number 1 right, and, you know, the perfect trajectory, etc., etc. All things that you are used to, of course, because you have been very successful in terms of driving as well as presenting. Irritating.
Well, used to, perhaps, but I mean, you can always learn. And it's always worth having a second pair of eyes with a second opinion, because of course the one thing these guys have got is the fact they're sitting in the car, but in terms of the sort of longevity of experience, that is something that they are benefiting from their driver coach.
It's exactly the same here, look, with Andrew Morrow, current Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli UK champion. 2 years and 3 months of racing, but he knows his, I remembered, Philip, he knows his way around, but he's still, you know, in conversation with Johnny Kane just ahead of the start of the race as well. Nothing is taken for granted.
No, and another driver coach with a huge amount of experience and racecraft under his belt.
And can I let you into a little secret about Johnny? He's not a bad bricklayer. Okay,
really?
He told me, and he's laughing. He heard me. Yes.
How do you find these things out?
Well, it's because we spend so much time together in airport lounges and, having all sorts of conversations.
Playing Jenga?
Well, no, and we were talking about bricklaying.
Okay, one car I do want to have a
Yes.
very quick chat to, because we haven't spoken to him so far today, is the man that lines up in second place, Lucky Kira. Now, listen, we haven't spoken to you so far today. You're making your return. You haven't been here for a few years. How has it been?
It's been amazing coming back. I've really had a good time.
Well, we missed seeing you yesterday. What can you do from the front row?
Let's see.
Everything.
Let's see.
Right, you go for it. I'm going to let him go. Right, and with that, I think it's time that we vacate the grid.
Do you think so? Stand by. Here comes race 2 at Donington Park. And to bring us all the action, it's Adam Weller and Mark Werrell.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, the final few team representatives, mechanics, just leaving the grid. Our beautiful grid of Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo spec cars all assembled there, and we will get our second race of the weekend underway. Remember, championship points up for grabs, 15 points for a race win, both in Trofeo Pirelli and in the subcategory of Copa Shell. 12 points for second, 10 points for third, and it diminishes from there by 2 points for every position, down to 1 point for 8th place. There's the extra point for fastest lap. The extra point for pole position, of course, has already been allocated after qualifying earlier on today. So off the cars go onto their final formation lap around the Donington Park National Circuit in advance of this 30-minute race, plus an extra lap thereafter. In other words, when the leader comes over the start-finish line, when the clock ticks to 0, there's 1 extra lap to be added thereafter. So let's guide you through the grid then for this 4th round, 8th race of the 2024 championship season, based on the qualifying times from earlier on today. Gilbert Yates starts from pole position, 6 pole positions on the trot for him now in Trofeo Pirelli, and championship returnee and double former champion Lucky Kera is alongside. Row 2 of the grid, the reigning champion Andrew Morrow lines up alongside Pranav Vangala, who we heard from on the grid walk there. And then as we move on to the 3rd row of the grid, on the inside of the 3rd row of the grid, it's Hemandra Pillai, and he's got the pole sitter in Copa Shell, Steve Dobson, first ever pole position for him in Ferrari Challenge UK, sitting there on the outside of that 3rd row of the grid. Row 4 of the grid is Mike Dewhirst, who has got his main championship rival Robert Rees for company, the 2 teammates from Dick Lovett Swindon. That is mathematically where we need to keep an eye on to see whether the championship could be settled today, or whether in Copa Shell it goes to the final 2 races at Silverstone. We'll keep you abreast of the maths as the race wears on. And the final rows of the grid, onto the 5th row of the grid, it's Gary Redman alongside Peter Hunter, and Darren Howell is at the back of the grid. He didn't qualify last, but he changed his car, and because he's gone into the spare car, he picks up a 5-place grid penalty, and he also picks up a 10-place grid penalty as well. So we're about to get the race underway. So neat 2x2 order. The red car with the day glow flashes is Gilbert Yates, who sit there on pole position. The black car from Great Hall Birmingham, Lucky Kera, is alongside, and the red lights are on the gantry. 30 minutes are on the clock. Round 4, race 8 of the 2024 Ferrari Challenge UK is go, and it looks like it's a good start from Andrew Morrow from the 2nd row of the grid, who's trying to prise the door open on Gilbert Yates, but Gilbert Yates is just able to cover him off. Keep an eye out for Pranav Vangala around the outside. When nearly 3 wide, Lucky Kera is in the middle. They all lean on each other, but there's no contact at all, and it is Gilbert Yates that comes out in the lead of the race up to 2nd position. That looks like it's Andrew Morrow who's through there into 2nd position. Lucky Kera is there in 3rd. Pranav Vangala drops down into 4th, with Hemandra Pillai there in 5th place, and Robert Rees has taken up the early race lead in Copa Shell, Adam.
Yes, indeed. So all a bit of a shuffle there, especially for Van Gala. He was just squeezed, pinched a little bit. And a good start as well from Pillai, retaining well there in 5th position. But Copa Shell, yeah, that's the one we need to watch, isn't it? They were side by side on the 4th row of the grid. Let's see how this evolves between Rees and Dewhurst. As you said, our job really is the calculators for today.
It is, yeah. Robert Rees leads Copa Shell in the early stages, but his main championship rival, Mike Dewhurst, is in 2nd, and if they stay in those respective positions, it does mean that the championship stays alive for Silverstone. So over the start-finish line they'll come. As ever, Gilbert Yates leading the way. He seems to have had the pace in every single session so far, and already 0.8 of a second is the gap between himself and Andrew Morrow in 2nd position. Lucky Kera fighting away with the HRO in car. That's the dark green number 29 car of Pranav Vangala that sits right behind him. And then the pink machine is Hemandra Pillai, who's just dropped away a little bit, and at the moment is trying to fend off the leader in Copa Shell. Remember, it's a red windscreen banner if it is a car that runs in Trofeo Pirelli. It's the yellow windscreen headers if the car runs in Copa Shell.
So that is going to be interesting for Robert Rees. He's going to be hoping that that doesn't happen, actually. As much as he loves going wheel to wheel, he doesn't really want to face Hemandra Pillai, because his eyes will be firmly focused on Dewhurst, who's currently directly behind him. For Stephen Dobson, let's see if he can try and fight Dewhurst. He's right on the back of the 78 car at the moment as they approach the final chicane. And it does look as though Dobson's race pace is solid. It certainly looked like it was quite good yesterday up against the only other car out there, Robert Rees. let's see how he translates today. It does look like Donington favours the fairly new driver.
Here we go, Stephen Dobson's almost trying to get a run on the yellow, blue and red car of Mike Dewhirst. He takes a nice wide sweep in towards Redgate corner. Don't think he's quite close enough to get the undercut as they come out of Redgate and up towards the top of Hollywood. So Dewhirst still 7th overall, 2nd in Copa Shell in the number 78 car, but hot on his heels is the pole sitter Stephen Dobson, who had his best result of the season yesterday when he finished 2nd in Copa Shell. He runs 3rd in Copa Shell at the moment as he heads out of the old hairpin and starts to climb up towards the top section of the circuit at McLean's corner. They're on lap number 3 at the moment, 27 minutes remain.
So up the hill towards Coppice we go. So many times you see a move set up at Coppice, of course, for the long run down to the Robert chicane. A bit wide there was Robert Rees that time through Coppice, but no harm, no foul there. Of course, the critical thing we saw yesterday was that Gilbert Yates was offered the opportunity to drive away, and he did. And frankly, that is somewhat what we're seeing again. However, the gap over the last 2 laps stagnating at 1.5 seconds. Let's see if Morrow maybe has a little bit of something. Maybe he's found something over the course of this Sunday morning to up his race pace somewhat.
Yeah, nothing to choose, was there, between the lap times of 1st and 2nd? Just 6/1000ths of a second quicker was Andrew Morrow over the race leader Gilbert Yates. Still got Lucky Kera in the number 24 car, representing Great Hall Birmingham, sitting there in 3rd position on his return to the championship. He is a 2-times champion, remember, and I've also just spotted it must have got close at Redgate corner on the first lap then when there were 3 wide, because the right-hand mirror, which is the passenger side on these left-hand drive cars, is folded over on Lucky Kera's car, so his visibility could be compromised if a car were to run alongside him on the run up towards something like the Robert chicane. A right-hander he just simply wouldn't be able to see. But Lucky Kera holding his own at the moment in 3rd place. Pranav Vangala sitting there in 4th position. And it's the pink car of Hemandra Pillai. And Robert Rees last time through with that missed apex that Adam was talking about up at Coppice corner fell into the clutches a little bit more of the yellow car of Mike Dewhirst. Here come the 2 Copa Shell front runners over the start-finish line now. Lights ablaze for the blue machine in the hands of Robert Rees, still keeping Mike Dewhirst at bay.
Yes, and in fact, Dobson on the previous lap a couple of tenths slower than Dewhirst, which means that the 78 driver has been released really from having to look in those mirrors before every braking zone of the lap. That's going to allow him to focus on himself, his lap times, and perhaps the blue target that sits directly ahead of him, Robert Rees, who claimed his 4th victory of the season yesterday. They were tied on 3 wins each coming into this weekend, the 2 main protagonists in Copa Shell. A 5th win today for Robert Rees, 5th win of the season, would be very beneficial if it does come down to a tie-break scenario at the end of the season.
Yep, so here comes Gilbert Yates about to conclude lap number 5, and we've had a spin for Steve Dobson, so the Copa Shell pole sitter has had a spin. That looks as though that's coming out of McLean's corner up at the top part of the circuit. No harm done, no damage to the car. He gets it pointing in the right direction and will continue, but he's now dropped to the very, very tail end of the field. So let's have a quick look. The battle for the lead of Copa Shell very much hotting up. Robert Rees under enormous pressure from Mike Dewhirst. Is Mike going to have a nibble as they head up towards Redgate corner? This could be important. And I think all side by side, and there might have been a little bit of contact between the pair of them.
There was Dewhirst on the inside of Robert Rees going into the first corner, and there was a bit of a pinch between them, an iota of contact between them by the looks of it. Dewhirst looks like he's continuing, just seeing it go through Craners and now into the old hairpin. It doesn't look like Mike Dewhirst's car has any issues, but there was definitely a pinch there, a moment of contact between the 2.
Yep, so Mike Dewhirst didn't lose a place. He was able to recover and has now just about got enough gap to try and keep the aspirations of the number 82 car of Peter Hunter at bay, who represents Stratstone Manchester. And a bit like Lucky Kera, he's now got one of his wing mirrors folded round as well. Shows how tight that was, because for Mike Dewhirst, it's the left-hand side of the car, so that's the driver's side wing mirror that's now been folded back as a result of that light contact between the pair of them. So we have 23 minutes of the race still to go, plus that extra lap thereafter. There's a good fight going on at the moment for what will be 9th and 10th place. Over the start-finish line it comes now. Gary Redmond in 9th place, the number 22 car. That's the grey car with the orange and the black flashes. Look at his mirrors. Who's right there? Darren Howell in the spare car, looking to try and pull a move, going up towards Redgate corner. Realised he was too far back, decided not to.
great to see Darren Howell putting in a good effort so far this weekend. He had a good showing yesterday, but of course in the race it ended with the first corner incident, the red flag that we had in the beginning. And he's taken to this spare car quite well. Obviously the engineers will have made a big effort to make him comfortable in the car, and he seems to have matched the pace he had yesterday in his regular steed, so that's always a positive sign.
Yeah, I was talking to him after qualifying. He did say the time he did in qualifying was on used tyres, so he'd kept a setback of fresh Pirellis for this one. Up towards Redgate Corner goes our race leader. There's a tiny bit of debris in Redgate Corner following that contact that I saw last time through. Yeah, you can see a bit of debris. It's one of the, I think, marker cones on the inside of the corner that's found its way into the tarmac, so that will be just left there for the moment. I'm sure another car might just clip it and move it further out of harm's way, but Gilbert Yates safely on his way. He is now 2 3/4 seconds as good as up the road from the reigning champion Andrew Morrow, and Gilbert Yates really just doing what Gilbert Yates has done all weekend.
Absolutely, the gap is extending there. It shrunk massively though in Copa Shell. Robert Rees last time by a 1 minute 10.949, the better part of 2 seconds slower than his personal best, and we can see Mike Dewhirst is right there behind him, so the battle is where it was a couple of laps ago before their contact.
Yep, so here they come up towards Schwantz Curve now. The blue car is Robert Rees, the yellow car with its red and its darker blue flashes is Mike Dewhirst. If they squabble, don't rule out the fact that former rally driver number 82 Peter Hunter could begin to close in and try and make it 3 cars fighting away for all 3 podium spots in Copa Shell. Now, as Mike Dewhirst gets through and ahead of Robert Rees, that certainly helps him in terms of the championship. Robert Rees one's a little bit wide coming out of Coppice Corner. That opens the door for Mike Dewhirst to try and draw himself alongside as they're heading towards the braking area for Robert's Corner. I think, yeah, it is still going to be Robert Rees that will hang on to it, but is he going to get a compromised exit? There's a bit of a wiggle on the exit of the corner, and that allows Mike Dewhirst to draw himself alongside. Dewhirst on the left-hand side of the circuit. That's the outside line when they head up towards Redgate Corner, and now fully catching them is Peter Hunter. Gary Redman's not that far away in the background of the shot as well. Dewhirst's going to go all the way around the outside at Redgate Corner to try and pick up the lead of Copa Shell, and manages to do so. What a move from Mike Dewhirst.
Looks to me like Robert Rees might be struggling a little bit with something, a little bit slower in the corners than his immediate competition by the looks of it. Maybe a legacy of the minor contact that we saw off camera from our commentary vantage position. Peter Hunter now targeting a move for second place. He's right there behind Robert Rees, and of course for Dewhirst this is brilliant news for his chances, slim though they may be, of still taking a Copa Shell title this year.
Up the inside tries Peter Hunter of Robert Rees heading in towards Coppice Corner. Can't quite make it stick, so he now needs to attack and defend at the same time because Gary Redman is right with him, and all of this is just allowing Mike Dewhirst to escape away in the lead of the Copa Shell category at this moment in time. So 3 fighting over what is 2nd, 3rd and 4th place in Copa Shell, and not that far away from them is the car that's 5th in Copa Shell at the moment, which is Darren Howell. So all 4 of those cars head up towards Redgate Corner, and are we going to see then a quartet fighting for what will be just 2 remaining podium spots in Copa Shell? We'll find out.
Here comes Hunter, better run through the Redgate Corner and through Hollywood. Looks to me like it's potentially the right-handers that are making it difficult for Robert Rees at the moment. They all seem to stack up through the right. Here comes Hunter then through the former side of the bridge and Schwantz Curve. And I just get the feeling that before long Peter's going to find his way by, but he's going to worry about Gary Redman, who's looking equally feisty behind him. Yeah,
the Hunter and the Hunted all head up towards Coppice Corner at the moment. Robert Rees still 2nd overall in Copa Shell, 7th in the race. He's got right behind him Peter Hunter. Then it's the number 22 car of Gary Redman that is next up. Darren Howell hasn't quite fully caught the trio ahead as things currently stand. So in towards the braking area for the Robert chicane. You can see the nose of the car's dip. You can see the glow of the carbon fibre brakes on the Ferrari 488 Evo Challenge spec cars. But the order still remains the same. And this is just perfect news, isn't it, for the Copa Shell leader, Mike Dewhirst, who is edging away all of the time at the wheel of his largely yellow number 78 car.
Yeah, Dewhirst was 27 points back from Robert Rees coming into this race in the Copa Shell Championship. So the concern for Dewhirst was, well, if Robert Rees outscores me by enough, I could lose my shot at even trying for the championship in Silverstone. But it's going the other way now. The gap is now shrinking. At the moment, it'd be down to 24 points between them. In fact, it may even be 23, because I believe Dewhirst is the quickest of the drivers out there in Copa Shell at the moment, and that would give him an additional point for fastest lap. And of course, the more Robert Rees struggles, the more positions he loses, the better it will be for the 78 driver.
Yeah, so up towards Coppice Corner goes Robert Rees. The pressure is building all of the time. As yet, Peter Hunter hasn't quite been able to unlock the door to second place in Copa Shell, but this could be the opportunity as Robert Rees runs wide again, coming out of Coppice Corner, and already Peter Hunter is through and picks up second in Copa Shell. And now the door is open for Gary Redmond to try and squeeze his way through, and makes it stick as well on the run in towards the Robert chicane. So all of a sudden, Robert Rees now finds himself down to 4th in Copa Shell and off the podium. We might have a further squabble for second now in Copa Shell, as Peter Hunter gets a poor exit coming out of Roberts. That leaves the door open, and trying to squeeze his way up the inside at Redgate Corner goes Gary Redmond. Peter Hunter braves it out around the outside of the corner. They give each other room, and Peter Hunter just has his nose ahead as they head up towards Hollywood, so by the skin of his teeth hangs on to second in Copa Shell.
But Darren Howell was right alongside as well with Robert Rees. He's backed out of it as they went through Hollywood there, gave him the inside line for the first part of the Craner curves. But even Darren Howell could be on to get past Robert Rees here, move himself up to 4th. And if he does so quickly, of course, he could still be a factor for the podium. From having to dust off the spare car to the podium would be a great story for Darren Howell, but he can't afford to spend too long behind Robert Rees.
Yeah, well, he's trying to take a title line going in towards Coppice Corner to sneak his way through, but Robert Rees chops across the nose of Darren Howell because he was just too far away in towards the braking area. So through this Robert chicane will come our Copa Shell race leader. Here comes Mike Dewhirst over the start-finish line. Second and third in Copa Shell will be next up, which will be Peter Hunter and Gary Redmond. And then we've got the next two cars busy fighting away. Robert Rees under intense pressure now from Darren Howell, who's again got a better exit coming out of the Robert chicane, draws himself alongside, but on the outside line as they head up towards Redgate Corner. And can the JCT 600 lead car go through? Yes, is the answer. It's another place lost for our championship leader in Copa Shell, Robert Rees, at the wheel of the Dick Lovett Swindon car.
Frustration, I'm sure, for Robert Rees, down to 5th. As it stands, with fastest lap in the hands of Dewhirst. Granted, there's a long way to go for that to change. The gap would be down to 16 points from the 27 it was as we started this race. That would be a big swing in favour of Mike Dewhirst.
It would, yeah. If Robert Rees remains where he is now, which is down as 5th position in Copa Shell, he'd be on 111 championship points. Mike Dewhirst would be on 93, plus the extra point for the fastest lap, 94. So that's the way it would work at the moment. Now, the next battle we need to keep an eye on is what's actually going on for the final two spots on the podium in Copa Shell, which are currently being occupied by the Stratstone Manchester number 82 car of Peter Hunter and the car that is looming fairly large in his mirrors, the local car from Greypool, Nottingham, which is Gary Redmond. Those two heading up towards Redgate Corner. Redmond not close enough to try and attack, at least on this lap. Was his lap time any quicker last time through? The answer was no. He's about 1/10 of a second slower than Peter Hunter. So Gary Redmond just needs to see whether he can edge up slightly more into the Pirelli wheel tracks of Peter Hunter and then offer himself up an opportunity to work his way through into second place. Plenty of time in which to do so still, Adam, because we've got 14 minutes plus that extra lap still to go.
Yes, we have got Andrew Morrow coming into the pit lane slowly, though. That's a big swing, of course, in the Trofeo Pirelli Championship. Andrew Morrow is slowing, coming into pit lane, crawled the car in, and that is huge for Andrew Morrow, who was, of course, tied on points coming into Donington this weekend. Gilbert Yates was already doing a great job here, and this really is a huge twist.
It is, yeah. It's the second potential retirement for Andrew Morrow in the 2024 championship season, because he retired in the second of the two races at Brands Hatch. And you count every round. You don't drop your worst score or your worst two the way it works in terms of the championship regulations. Every single race is a point-scoring race. So you've got to remain consistent. Up towards Redgate Corner now. Peter Hunter on this lap. He, remember, runs in the number 82 car, running second in Copa Shell. Has quite substantively extended his lead between himself and Gary Redmond that time through. Peter Hunter was a 1 minute 9.9. Gary Redmond was the best part of 0.8 of a second slower. So the gap has really opened up between those two comparative to what it was on the lap prior, and the gap has certainly opened up between Gilbert Yates and Lucky Kehrer, because our race leader safely threw it over the start-finish line. Gilbert Yates now 13.4 seconds to the good in the overall race lead after 15 laps of racing. Nearly a second a lap he's pulled away.
Yes, it was just over 4 seconds between Yates and Morrow on the lap prior to Andrew Morrow coming into the pit lane. So Andrew's pace was not bad by any means. However, that is more than likely going to be a non-finish for the #1 car, and that is a huge shame. Lucky Kira then upgraded to second position overall. And again, for Pranav Van Gala just behind him, who just gets a bit wiggly there on braking into McLean's in the back of shot. What a testament this is to how far he's come in his first season of Ferrari Challenge UK, that he's able to stay within 1.5 seconds, 1.1 seconds back last time by, of the most successful driver in Ferrari Challenge UK's history.
Yep, and the double champion. Yep, Lucky Kira, double champion and the runner-up as well. So those two cars just threading their way through the right and left flicks at the Robert chicane now and back over the start-finish line. So there goes Lucky Kira, there goes Pranav Van Gala, and as the race continues, let's go down to Dave and to Amanda, who are down there in the pit lane.
We are down in the pit lane, the drama hotting up on track, and drama down here in the pit lane as well. Behind us is the Andrew Morrow car. I'm led to believe, Amanda, that maybe it's something as trivial as a sensor issue, and I know you've been in the garage with regards to Robert Rees.
I have indeed, yes. Just overhearing what these guys were saying, it seems that Andrew was getting warnings about ABS and other warnings coming up, which goes to follow that there was some sort of sensor issue. And with regards to Robert Rees, it seems that contact in the early part of the race has caused an imbalanced or some sort of problem with the back end of the car, and that explains why he's been losing positions.
Bitter disappointment for Andrew Morrow. Johnny, it was all such good humour at the start of the race, and now, like motor racing, it's beautiful, but it can be brutal as well. Tell us what's going on.
A little bit cruel. We've lost a wheel speed sensor on the right front, so TC, ABS, all the functions are, well, not working basically. So, yeah, bit of a shame. Andrew's obviously done his fastest lap of the race, or fastest lap of the weekend in that race, so getting quicker all weekend and keeping Gilbert honest, at least in that one. So, yeah, real shame. He was driving very well.
Bitter disappointment. And actually, we can bring the driver in here, Andrew. I mean, I'm so sorry, friend. We were having such a laugh on the grid. And, you know, as I was just saying to your driver coach, Johnny, motor racing is beautiful, but it can be brutal as well.
Yeah, it just turns out something very simple. The front right wheel speed sensors failed, so we had no ABS, no traction. 2 laps before I came in, we had an alarm, but we managed to keep going. But just coming into that last corner, just everything locked up and no traction control, so we had to pit and see what the problem was. Just an unfortunate day, because it's going good.
You were fastest lap?
Yeah, no, it was going well. It's a shame how it's ended.
Andrew, sorry for you. So Andrew Morrow and Johnny Kane both talking to us, and of course Amanda finding out all the information with regard to Robert Rees as well. Hopefully that gives you some information, guys, up there. Mark and Adam.
So yes, that is a big swing, of course, in the championship battle as well. There was a 6-point advantage coming in. You can add 16 to that if things finish as they are, because Gilbert Yates does have the fastest lap of the race thus far. As we were just hearing from Johnny Kane there, Andrew Morrow did get into the 106s for the first time this weekend in the early stages of the race. But now for Gilbert Yates, he, at the moment, has the potential of a 24-point lead coming into Silverstone, and that is not what we expected at the start of the weekend.
No, when they were tied on points, weren't they, coming into this one? So yeah, it works well for Gilbert Yates. Disappointment for Andrew Morrow, but he'll dust himself down and will focus his efforts on Silverstone. Prior to that, of course, he'll have another European round, which will be at Paul Ricard, won't it? Is the next round that's coming up in what, a week's time. So Mike Dewhirst, number 78, still running in 5th place, continues to lead Copa Shell at this stage, and now has a 5.2 second advantage between himself and Peter Hunter, who is 2nd of the Copa Shell competitors. 3rd in Copa Shell is still the number 22 car of Gary Redman. So it's nice to see, Adam, you know, Mike Dewhirst caught up in the incident yesterday, going well today. Peter Hunter caught up in the incident yesterday, going well today. Gary Redman caught up in the incident, going well today. All of those that suffered issues yesterday, all heading towards podiums today.
The entirety of the top 4 in Copa Shell is the 4 that were affected by yesterday's incident. We only had 2 across the line in Copa Shell yesterday, and those that went missing early doors are having a much better run of it here on Sunday. Particularly impressed, though, by Mike Dewhurst's race so far has been charging at the front. Peter Hunter equally has been pressing on. But yeah, this is hugely advantageous for Mike Dewhirst.
Yeah, he is at the moment also still maintaining the fastest lap that we've had in Copa Shell at the moment, so he would be on for the extra championship points, so that would wrap him up on 94 championship points. For Robert Rees, he needs to just keep going, doesn't he? Because, you know, if he pulls into the pit lane and doesn't get classified as a finisher, he'll score no points. If he keeps going, OK, he's down in 6th in Copa Shell at the moment, but that would net him at least 4 championship points, and they could all be very, very important come the totting up. So keeping an eye also on what's going on in Trofeo Pirelli. Gilbert Yates, Lucky Kieran, Pranav Vangala are first, second and third. The pink machine, though, of Amandra Pillai, still sits there in 4th, the Malaysian driver at the moment. He's just threading his way out of the Robert chicane, and he's about to conclude lap number 20.
Pillai, whose father I met in the paddock for the first time this weekend, his 3rd long-haul flight from Malaysia to the UK this season to support his son's racing endeavours, which I think is really quite a lovely gesture. I can't imagine doing that many flights that quickly. I imagine he'll be here for the Silverstone season finale as well, particularly with Pillai's form getting better and better. It feels like only a matter of time before we start to see Hymandra, especially perhaps next year with the 296, everyone learning that car in step. Maybe he can start challenging regularly for podiums and victories.
Yeah, let's hope so. Yeah, I mean, he's running in 4th at the moment. I'd imagine he's fed up with 4th places this year because he finished 4th in the opening round at Brands Hatch. He was 4th in both of the races at Oulton Park. He was 4th in the second of the 2 races at Snetterton. He was 5th yesterday. He's back to 4th again today. So he's had his fair share of 4ths, and yeah, it'd be great to see him add his name to the drivers that have featured on the overall podium so far this season. It certainly looks as though Lucky Kira could well be on for an overall podium on his return to the championship that he's secured for the 2nd time in 2022. Lucky Kira just working his way out of the old hairpin as things currently stand. He's still not got a great deal of daylight between himself and the number 29 car of Pranav Vangala, who is still within 1.4 seconds of Lucky Kira, who we did see out on track yesterday in the free practice sessions, but he wasn't able to race because it was his daughter's birthday yesterday, so he opted not to race. He's now got the difficulty of traffic, though, to try and thread his way through, which is Steve Dobson's car, and also then the next of the cars that he's going to want to try and pass, which is Darren Howell. So he's passed Darren Howell. Steve Dobson will be the next one.
Yeah, that means there's been a change as well in the Copa Shell category, because Dobson has got past Darren Howell, so that's a move for 4th in class that's been made over the last lap or so. So not just shuffling with the traffic, but shuffling with position as well. And it's a mixed blessing, this, as we see Pranav Vangala diving to the inside of Howell and realising there might not have been a car's width there on the apex of Redgate. But for Dobson, this is really promising that his race pace is so good. But of course, that spin early on, what could have been without it for the pole sitter?
Yeah, he didn't convert pole to the early race lead, dropped to 3rd, but yeah, that spin has really undone all of the hard work he did in qualifying. Now for Pranav Vangala, he still hasn't found his way through and past the back marker traffic of Darren Howell at the moment, and it's not up to Darren Howell to move out of harm's way, it's up to Pranav Vangala to make sure he goes through. Now he's not been able to do it at McLean's corner. Can he try something as they head up towards Coppice corner? Pranav Vangala, no, he's just going to bide his time, and then finally, Darren Howell sees the traffic behind, just moves offline, allows Pranav Vangala to go through. But remember, Pranav Vangala was just 1.4 seconds behind Lucky Kira on the previous lap. That extended to 2 seconds when they started this lap. And that gap will have come out massively, because over the start-finish line now goes the Grey Paul Birmingham number 24 car of Lucky Kira, and Pranav Vangala now through the traffic, another 1.5 seconds back from that.
Yeah, 3.5 seconds now, the gap then between 2nd and 3rd place overall and in Trofeo Pirelli, and that really hasn't worked out in Pranav Vangala's favour, has it? Lucky Kira on his way then potentially to a 2nd place finish on his return to the series. Now with that pressure alleviated, he can just focus on getting these last few laps in. Meanwhile, Gilbert Yates still out there setting good times, although I note that for once this weekend, Gilbert has backed off. He's now down into the high 108s. I think that might be one of the slowest recorded competitive laps of the weekend for Gilbert.
He's been so quick, he's been so consistent. Yeah, the gap was up to, 13 seconds, wasn't it, when they completed 15 laps? Well, it's now down to 9.3 after 23, so he's eased things over the course of the last few laps, largely because he can now control the pace. He's done all of the hard work in the early stages, he's built the margin, he's built the advantage, and now it's just just a case of consolidate all of that. So Pranav Vangala has finally worked his way past the traffic, and through comes the third place car overall over the start-finish line. 3.8 seconds adrift now of Lucky Kira. So the traffic just didn't really work out for Pranav Vangala. He didn't do anything wrong, but he just met the traffic in the wrong place. He couldn't clear them in time, and that was the little break that Lucky Kira needed to cement almost second place.
Yeah, it seems as though the overall podium is cemented, and equally, you must say, the top three in Copa Shell also with big intervals, 4.6 seconds from our leader Mike Dewhirst to Peter Hunter in second position, then 15 seconds from Hunter to Redman. So both Dewhirst and Hunter have been the class of the field in terms of race pace today in Copa Shell. Both of them will be bitterly disappointed with how Saturday went, but a sweeter taste in the mouth at the conclusion of Sunday.
Yeah, it's nice when you end the weekend on a high rather than go home, as poor old Andrew Morrow will be doing, at the low point of the weekend. Now, Gilbert Yates, is that a problem for Gilbert Yates? Is his car slowing as he came out of the start-finish line? Because
yes, Lucky's
start-finish line, Lucky Kira's taken up the lead of the race, and Gilbert Yates has a problem. So Andrew Morrow had the problem, who was fighting away with Gilbert Yates in terms of the overall championship, and now Gilbert Yates has slowed. He has dropped to third place. Through has gone Lucky Kira, through has gone Pranav Vangala.
I was thinking 109s last time by before crossing the line just a moment ago. So that feels like more than maybe just backing off. And now Gilbert Yates is down to third. He'll soon be down to fourth. Another huge twist in the championship. Both of the Trofeo Pirelli Championship protagonists have had a stumble of some variety.
And it would also potentially promote Hemendra Pillai up onto the podium so far this year. So Lucky Kira, you could argue slightly fortuitous, or lucky, as the case may be, with picking up the lead of the race. But on his return to Ferrari Challenge UK, already as the most successful driver with 2 championships and 17 wins under his belt, he is only now a couple of laps away from adding to the tally and making it 18 overall wins in the category.
And that would put him well over 10 clear, over double what anyone else has ever achieved in the history of Ferrari Challenge UK. Lucky Kira crosses the line to begin what will be the penultimate lap of the race. Once the clock hits 0, then they'll cross the line just the once more. So 1 to go at the next time by. And, well, we wait for Yates with bated breath. We assume he might try and plug on. He has indeed already gone past, so he's through. And, well, you can see the times, 1 minute 20 last time by.
Yeah, he's lapping about 11 seconds slower, 12 seconds slower than anybody else out there at the moment. And at that lap, he was 12 seconds slower than Hemendra Pillai, who is in 4th at the moment in the number 19 pig car. And Hemendra now is only 9.5 seconds behind. So if they maintain their respective paces, Gilbert Yates will drop off the overall podium before too much longer. But for our race leader, Lucky Kira, 0 is on the clock, and he'll be heading on to what will be the final lap of the race this next time through for what has been a brilliant return to him for Ferrari Challenge UK.
Meanwhile, Robert Rees gets lapped by Mike Dewhirst. Remember, those two had an exchange for the overall, well, for the lead in Copa Shell, well, about 20 minutes ago. That really shows how much Robert Rees is struggling in the tail end of this race. I think that Yates and Pillai are together on the circuit. Yes, they are, just coming down to the chicane. Here comes Hemendra Pillai past the ailing car of Gilbert Yates as they go on to the final lap. Well, Yates will be classified as a finisher. He'll be classified in 4th, of course. That means he'll get 8 points and have a 14 gap over Andrew Morrow going into the finale.
Yep, so Lucky Kira now already on his last lap of the race and will be threading his way in towards the final aspect of it before too much longer. So he's just turning his way now through McLean's corner, right out at the far reaches of the circuit, just climbs in terms of altitude again up to the highest point of the track, which is the double apex blind entry right-hander at Coppice corner. And all he's got to do now is just stroke the car down the straight and in towards the braking area for the right and the left flicks at Roberts. And it does look as though Lucky Kira is on course to scoop up a win in round 4, race 8 of the 2024 Ferrari Challenge UK. Out of the final corner, Lucky Kira and Grey Paul Birmingham are going to come through to claim their first win of the season here at Donington Park. Pranav Van Gala finishes in second place, 3.2 seconds adrift in the end. And then we await the arrival of Hemandra Pillai before too much longer over the start-finish line. Gary Redmond comes through. He will finish in 7th place overall, off the lead lap, but he will be featuring on the Copa Shell podium. Here comes Hemandra Pillai over the start-finish line now. That is his first podium of the 2024 championship season. So for Lucky Kira, absolute delight in his return to the championship. He picks up the win. That will please himself, the family, and Grey Paul Birmingham. And then we also need to await our winner over the start-finish line of Copa Shell, Mike Dewhirst, who was in danger of mathematically being out on a limb in terms of the championship. Well, good result for him to pick up another win in Copa Shell. That also now means that his championship aspirations stay alive at Silverstone, and that will more than please not just him, that will also please Dick Lovett-Swindon, who will also see one of their team representatives head up onto the podium. Well, that had a bit of everything, didn't it? There were plenty of twists and turns in the tail, but Lucky Kira will have the biggest smile on his face. He's the winner.
Yeah, for Gilbert Yates, I did say it would be a 14-point lead. Of course, be 15 because he got the fastest lap as well. So provisionally speaking, 15 points going into the finale in that championship battle. And also spare a thought for Pranav Van Gala. Remember how close he was to Lucky Kira before trying to thread through that Copa Shell battle in the traffic. He'll look back at it and realise, oh, if I'd just been able to get through at the right times, I could have fought Lucky for the win.
Yeah, so not to be for him, but Mike Dewhirst will be delighted. Say disappointment yesterday when he got as far as the first corner before he was involved in that incident which prevented his inclusion in the restart of it. But from the lows of yesterday, you bounce back to the highs of today, and he'll have a big old smile on his face as he gets out of the car. He's just got his hand out of the window, and that's a mixture of just trying to wave to the marshals, but also trying to get a bit of cool air in, which, very warm cars, a small sliding window is all you get to ventilate, and most drivers will keep those closed whilst they're racing because it still just causes that little bit of drag. So Lucky Kira, very pleased indeed. And that's nice to see. Who was one of the first people to come over and congratulate him? That was Andrew Morrow's father, wasn't it?
I believe so, yes, and got a hug off his dad as well. Lots of friendly faces in this paddock, and Lucky Kira taking in the spoils of returning to Ferrari Challenge UK's victory lane.
Yeah, great to see Lucky Kira, one of the most enthusiastic drivers and smiley people you could ever wish to meet, Lucky Kira. And yeah, that's now 18 wins in total for the double champion in Ferrari Challenge UK. And he said to me earlier on at the weekend, I said, will you be back out at Silverstone, Lucky, or is this just a one-off? He said, I'll see how the weekend goes and I'll decide from there. Well, based on how the weekend has gone, I think we might just see Lucky Kira at the championship finale at Silverstone.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against it, put it that way. Now, Andrew Morrow finishing 14 laps of a 28-lap race. My question is, does he or doesn't he score points for that?
I'd have to look back through all the regulations on the basis of how many laps he'd done in a sprint race. I don't think potentially he'd be classified as a finisher. We'll have to wait and see. Wait until the results are issued and we'll know that way. So the drivers jumping out of their cars. We will, at some point, we'll be getting some reaction from down there. And that is Peter Hunter just taking off his crash helmet and Hans device down there. Off comes the balaclava and receiving the congratulations of, I guess, family members down there. And he'll be more than pleased with that. That second place in Copa Shell matches his best result of the season. He took second places in Copa Shell at Brands Hatch and at Alton Park. Has had less fortune since then, but it's good to see him with a big old smile on his face after the disappointment of yesterday. And also equally good to see him back on the Copa Shell podium after an absence of a couple of rounds. Alton Park, wasn't it, on the 10th of May was the last time we saw him on the Copa Shell podium, Adam?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of a while, hasn't it, for Peter Hunter? A well-earned return and second position for him. I heard him saying there to his wife, I genuinely don't even know where I was. So whether he's now found out he was second or not, I'm not sure. I'm Andrew Pillai saying hello and congratulations as well. They're both going to get the opportunity to stand on the podium, of course.
Yeah, I'm really chuffed for Hemandra Pillai. He's had way too many fourths, and finally we've got him onto the podium. Yes, a bit of fortune in there, but you also make your own luck. You've got to be in a position to pick up should other people have any sort of problem that means that they fall by the wayside. So really chuffed for Hemandra Pillai that he's grabbed for himself, and Jardine Colchester, who he represents, his first podium of the 2024 championship season. So we'll confirm the results for you shortly. In the meantime, let's go down to the pit lane and Amanda Stretton.
Well, I am here with the race winner. Lucky by name, lucky by nature. Did you actually think on your return to the Ferrari Challenge you were going to come away with the top step of the podium?
Yeah. No, I'm joking. It's been a journey. You know, I've been off track for a while, got some injuries, and coming back here, and the racing gods were here today, and, you know, pace was okay, but it wasn't sort of where it needed to be. So I'm delighted with the weekend.
It was an absolutely faultless. I mean, it looked at the very beginning you were getting quite punchy going around the first corner at Redgate, but then when the race sort of started to gather its rhythm, you were sitting comfortably in third.
Yeah, I mean, I pushed early on and I lost a bit of tyre, and from that point I just thought, okay, just manage where you are.
Well, listen, you've done a wonderful job. Many congratulations. Does this mean, have you got the racing bug back?
Let the adrenaline come down, give it a week, and we'll see.
I reckon somebody's going to be coming to you now with a pen and paper and say, sign here.
Him there.
There he is. Yes, he's grinning like a Cheshire cat. Listen, congratulations to the Trofeo Pirelli race winner, Lucky Kira.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, always good to hear from Lucky Kira. So in third place in Copa Shell went the way of Gary Redman. He'll be heading towards the podium, matching his best result of the 2024 championship season. Second in Copa Shell was the number 82 car of Stratstow Manchester and Peter Hunter. That also equals his best result of the Copa Shell championship season for 2024. But the top step of the podium, and now that is going to be a fourth win in Copa Shell this season, the number 78 car of Mike Dewhirst and Dick Lovett Swindon. Those are the top three in Copa Shell. In Trofeo Pirelli, Hemandra Pillai claims his first win of the 2024 championship season, and he'll be delighted with that, I'm sure, as will Jardine Colchester. The HR Owen car of the HR Owen car finishes in second place of Pranav Vangala, and the win went the way of the double former champion and returnee, which is Lucky Kira. So those will be the drivers that will be heading towards the podium. We'll just confirm them, our results for you following round 4, race 8 of the championship. It is Lucky Kira that claims the win by 3.2 seconds in the end from Pranav Vangala in second place. Hemandra Pillai was there in third, and Gilbert Yates, who did everything right but it all went wrong, finishes in fourth place. Fifth place is the winner of Copa Shell, Mike Dewhirst, who we'll be hearing from shortly. Then it's Peter Hunt, who was there in 6th place, and Gary Redman in 7th. Stephen Dobson was in 8th place. Darren Howell was there in 9th place. And Robert Rees completed the top 10, which means that Copa Shell Championship and Trofeo Pirelli both stay alive for Silverstone. And then, of course, we had our retiree, Andrew Morrow, who unfortunately was not able to see the checkered flag. So I think we can get some more reaction from down there in the pit lane. This time Amanda Stretton is with Mike Dewhirst, Copa Shell winner.
Well, Mike Dewhirst, what an incredible race that was. I mean, did you actually think at any point up until the end that you were going to be taking the spoils this weekend?
Well, it was always a possibility, but once Rob was ahead at the start, and it looked like it was going to be a bit of a challenge. But yeah, I managed to hold some good pace, and took me a couple of goes to get past him, a little bit of a contact. But yeah, then I got him cleanly second time.
But it looked like as soon as you made that move and got past him, you had Peter Hunter hot on your tail as well.
Yeah, we were keeping an eye on the gap, and it was kind of hovering around 5 seconds. So I thought, as long as it doesn't get down to 4 and 3, I'm good.
Right.
Yeah.
Listen, many congratulations. I know you've got a plane to catch, so I'm going to let you go. But congratulations, race winner in Copa Shell. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Overall race winner and the winner of Trofeo Pirelli, Lucky Kira. We've also heard from our winner, Mike Dewhirst, who scooped up top honours in Copa Shell in what has been a brilliant weekend here of racing, the fourth weekend of racing in the Ferrari Challenge UK. We've still got loads more to go on though, because of course we've still got our final weekend of racing at Silverstone. Our drivers will be heading towards the podium shortly. We'll be bringing you all of that, but Adam, it really has been a great day's racing.
I'm feeling the fever pitch today, talking to some of the drivers, whether they're looking ahead to Silverstone, even looking beyond to Imola, to Finale Mondiale, which I know a couple of them are doing, a couple of them are considering doing for the World Finals there. It's such an awesome thing talking to some of these drivers in Ferrari Challenge, because for so many of them, this is dream come true material. Not just getting to race a Ferrari, but getting to stand on podiums at some of the best circuits in the world.
So we'll hear a little bit more from Adam as we sign off, but I think we're going to go down to Dave Richardson, who's ready to perform the podium ceremonies.
Podium time down here at Donington Park then. Day 2 of our race action with the Ferrari Challenge UK. Trofeo Pirelli podium first of all. And let's welcome, taking the P3 place on the podium, here comes Heimandra Pillai. And on step 2 of the podium, Pranav Vangala. And back on the top step of the podium, he knows his way there, Lucky Kira. We also welcome a representative from Grey Paul Birmingham that will take to the podium as well. George, come along, friend. George is here. And the Trofeo Pirelli trophies will be presented by our Ferrari factory driver, James Collado, who is here. So taking P3, Heimandra Pillai. For P2 then, Pranav Vangala. What a great weekend. And on his return to the Ferrari Challenge, Lucky Kira. And of course, Lucky receives the Pirelli Award as well, because we like to make sure his arms are full of trophies here. James makes that presentation. And of course, George from Grey Paul Birmingham in receipt of his own trophy as well for the Copa Teams trophy. So George gets 2 trophies. Lucky has already given one away. So well done. There we have it then, our podium with Lucky Kira, Pranav Vangala and Heimandra Pillai. Lucky, you have absolutely got to soak him in champagne, Lucky. You've got to make sure George gets it. That lovely shirt has got to be soaked. Sadly, I'm not going to get my way. So they pose for the photographs. Big smiles all round. And now it is time for the champagne. And, well, Lucky Kira moves like a racing driver has never moved before. I have to say, Heimandra Pillai is good with the old champagne, isn't he? My goodness me. Well done to our Trofeo Pirelli drivers. So we'll very briefly clear up the podium, and then we will be on with our Copa Shell podium. It'll only take a moment or so. Lucky will come back and get his trophy. You coward, Lucky Kira. So there we go. New champagne is being put onto the podium as we speak. Trophies have been taken away. Hairy Mary with the mop is not here, but the podium is ready then for our Copa Shell drivers. And what a race it was in Copa Shell. And to take P3 on the Copa Shell podium, please give it up for Gary Redman. Here comes Gary. I'm tempted to say at blooming last, back on the podium for P2, Peter Hunter. And then on the top step of the podium, here comes Mike Dewhirst. And of course, we welcome a representative from Dick Lovett Swindon as well onto the podium. So Dick Lovett will be represented. Thank you. And the trophies are to be presented by our Ferrari North Europe Regional Manager, Federico Pastorelli, who is here, who makes the P3 trophy presentation, first of all, to Gary Redman. The P2 trophy to Peter Hunter. Yes, he wants that badly. And the P1 trophy to Mike Dewhirst on the top step of the podium. And of course, the Copa Teams trophy presented to Dick Lovett Swindon. So well done indeed to our Copa Shell drivers then for the second race here at Donington Park. Of course, we head from here to Silverstone for the final round of our 2024 season. And, well, our dealer makes haste his escape before Peter Hunter is released from the photographs. Big smiles all round. And it's champagne time. That was nothing to do with me. Absolutely nothing to do with me. So there we have it then. The podiums are done and dusted down here at Donington Park. What a weekend of racing we've had. Drama aplenty, that's for sure. And back to Mark Werrell right now.
Thank you, Dave. Yep, so that is the racing concluded. That's the podium concluded. But let's have a look at what the championship points look like. In Trofeo Pirelli, Gilbert Yates continues to lead the way. He's now got a 15-point gap between himself and Andrew Morrow, who is in second position, but is now jointly on the same number of points as Pranav Van Gala as they head towards Silverstone. Hemandra Pillai lies fourth in the championship standings, and then it's Tom Fleming and John Dillon that wrap up the top six. AJ Litt is there in seventh. Lucky Kira, his only weekend of racing, he's now eighth in the championship standings, and Lee Frost, who drove Lucky's car yesterday, is there in ninth place in Trofeo Pirelli. So 15-point gap covering the top three in Trofeo Pirelli, beautifully poised with 35 available at Silverstone. What does Copa Shell look like? Well, let's have a quick look at that one, because remember, Robert Rees could have scooped up the championship title in that race. He still continues to lead the championship. He's on 109 championship points. There's a 15-point gap between himself and Mike Dewhirst, who's there in second position. Gary Redman is there in third place, but only a single point ahead of Steve Dobson, who's there in fourth. And then there's only another 4 points gap back now to Peter Hunter, who's in fifth place, with Darren Howell completing the top six in Copa Shell. So both championships will head towards Silverstone, still up for grabs. Great to see. So let's just have a look back at some of the highlights from round 4, race 8 of the championship. Well, when the lights went out, it was almost 3 wide up towards Redgate Corner. Lucky Kira and Gilbert Yates busy squabbling away with Pranav Van Gala, but it was going to be Andrew Morrow that squeezed his way through into second place earlier on in the race. And in Copa Shell, the early race lead was going the way of Robert Rees, but his main championship rival, who is fighting for the overall title with, Mike Dewhirst, was never that far away. He got closer to him, Mike Dewhirst. He had one nibble to try and pick up the lead of Copa Shell, and would finally go through to grab the place. That was on the run down in towards Redgate Corner, where he looked one way, looked the other. Peter Hunter was there in third in Copa Shell as the two were side by side, and having had one attempt to work his way through, he then went right the way round the outside to pick up the victory in Copa Shell. Robert Rees, who had been hanging on to it, then suffered car problems as a result of a little bit of contact. His car was not performing as he would have wanted. Peter Hunter found his way through. Gary Redman found his way through, and Robert Rees would be sort of limping that car towards the checkered flag, whilst Peter Hunter and Gary Redman continued to fight it out as to who was going to finish second and third in the Copa Shell category. Robert Rees lost a further place. Into the pit lane came Andrew Morrow, which is his second retirement of the 2024 championship season. A wheel sensor was what caused his problems. Out on circuit though, Lucky Kira and Pranav Van Gala were still busy fighting away for what is second and third place, but then a problem befell Gilbert Yates, the race leader, who had at one point been leading by over 13.5 seconds. He would still see the checkered flag. He would come home in fourth position, but he'd lose the lead of the race, and that would allow Lucky Kira on his return to the championship to grab his race win, his 18th of the Ferrari Challenge UK career. Pranav Van Gala would come through to finish in second place, and Hemandra Pillai would pick up his first podium of the season. That's it from Donington Park. We're at Silverstone on the 14th and 15th of September. Till then, goodbye.